Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Higher Moment Mastermind. We are delighted to have you here to answer your job search questions on this Friday morning. And we're actually going to start with someone who just got a job, Jamie Beaulieu. Def, do I say that correct? Beaulieu? I've never.
It's Beaulieu.
Beaulieu. Okay.
Yeah.
I've heard you say it once.
It's very French. I had to learn to say it before I got married.
Yeah, right? Yeah, so Jamie has been with us for quite some time and has been going through a lot of job searches and has finally landed a really fantastic role. So Jamie, do you want to share any lessons learned in your journey?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this group, really, because it really was a lifeline for me over the last 9 months. So a couple weeks ago, I'm not sure if anyone is on the call from a couple weeks ago, but I shared a little bit, a tip that at that time about, being patient and even if the employer is not getting back to you readily, that maybe not all hope is lost. And that's really what happened here. I had started interviewing for this position over a month ago, and then there was sort of radio silence for a while, and then all of a sudden on Monday they called me with an offer. So it happens. I had really written them off, but just going back through my journey, I'm a bit of a data geek, so of course I've collected all of this data and I'll share it with you. I was laid off on October 3rd, 2020. From my job. It was a large scale layoff due to COVID. In the time between then and now, I applied for 89 jobs. I got interviews at 33 of them, which is 37%, a stat that I'm very proud of, and definitely achieved because of great advice from groups like this and other, using my network and others that were in the same situation to just kind of share best practices and share what's working and what's not working. Some advice I'll give: do your research, customize your cover letter and resume. Probably most of what I'm going to say, Shira or someone else that facilitates this call has already said, and you may have written down already, but it's so important to get noticed right off the bat. And with that comes activating your network. LinkedIn has become my best friend. I had no idea what the power, I always had a good network of people. I'm a people person. I keep in touch with people, but I had no idea how much my network was going to actually help me to get my foot in the door, to get first interviews. Ask for help. People are more than happy to offer it. Make sure it's reciprocal, but don't be afraid to ask people for help. Prepare your star stories. This was probably a lesson I learned in my first Higher Moment Mastermind. The STAR chart, situation, task, action, result. I have a monster spreadsheet that has every single interview or every single organization I interviewed with. There's a tab for every single one and an individual star chart for each one of those interviews. And you practice saying your situations, but employers want to see how your previous work is going to apply to what they want you to do. Know who's interviewing you, do your research there, prepare tailored questions, more than you'll be able to ask. I generally have at least 5, but sometimes more questions prepared. So if some of the questions that I have are answered during the course of the interview, I'm not left with nothing to ask at the end of the interview when they offer me that opportunity. Shamelessly promote yourself. So use social media to promote yourself and your philosophies, whether you're posting original articles or just finding articles and sharing them to let people know who you are. Be a thought leader. If you have time and inclination, I wrote articles for industry publications during this time. I also became a guest on 2 podcasts. Again, that's part of shamelessly promoting myself. I reached out to people who had podcasts and I said, please feature me. Can I be on your podcast? Here's what I have to offer. And then share those recordings. I also found opportunities to participate in small group discussions and stay sort of alive within the nonprofit industry, which is where I am. It kept me fresh, and it also actually grew my network as well. Patience, I think, is the most important thing. Every search is more urgent to you than it is to the employer. I think that the most important nugget I can share, though, is resilience. You have to have thick skin. There's a lot of rejection if you're just starting off, or if you've been in it for a while, you get rejected more than you get offers. And so you have to, find your mantra and repeat it to yourself daily. Keep personal wellness really on your front burner and find ways to keep yourself sane. A colleague turned great friend told me last October, and every time I felt down, he said, "You will land, and you will land well. Don't worry." And it was hard to remember and believe that, but it happened, and I'm ecstatic for how well I landed. It's better than I ever thought I would, and I know that it will happen to each of you as well. So thank you so much for sharing my journey with me.
That's great, Jamie. Thank you so much. It's a great kind of wrap up to everything. That's just terrific. Do you want to share even one little nugget about how you got this particular role?
Sure. So I applied and went through the phone screen and got to the hiring manager. At the same time, or shortly after, I met with the hiring manager and really sort of fell in love with the role more than I actually thought I would. Based on that interview, I became a finalist in a different search, and which was exciting in and of itself. But now this was my top choice, and so I went to back to the employer and I said, "Hey, I'm not trying to pressure the process. I just want to let you know that I'm a finalist in another search, and I want to better understand your timeline and also understand whether you're even still considering my candidacy." And they fast tracked a bunch of interviews, which then subsequently turned into a lot of time lag because they did want to, of course, interview other people and put other people through that same process. So that was the reason for the lag. I kept hanging on. I checked in one time in a month period. I checked in halfway through and they told me that I was still being highly considered, but please be patient as they finish their process. And then on Monday, I got a phone call. So it worked out.
Shira?
It was a long process for you, I know.
It was.
Yeah. So Shira, let me share another tip as part of Jamie's search. This was for one of the other organizations she was interviewing for, and she used LinkedIn, and she's found out, wow, Shira and Vern are both connected to the VP of HR at this organization. And so she reached out to us and said, "Do you know this person? How well do you know this person?" And Shira and I just said, "Oh yeah, we know that person from like 15 years ago." Right? And so we haven't been in touch with her. But given my passion around networking, I'm never afraid to reach out. And I reached out and I said, "Hey, Nancy, this is a blast from the past." I said, "Love to catch up. And by the way, I know one of the finalists for your position. Would you like to, hear my impressions about her?" And so Nancy reached back out to me. She said, "I love Blast from the Past." And so Nancy and I caught up on what she's done the last 15 years. And I shared what I knew about Jamie. And obviously, Jamie got even a better job than that one. But again, that's being proactive. That's how Jamie said she used her LinkedIn network. There's a specific example. So don't be afraid to look who's connected to people within the organization, and then maybe you can get a connection to that organization. And obviously, I said good things about Jamie when I talked to Nancy, right? So that certainly didn't hurt her candidacy any in terms of that particular search.
And speaking of blasts from the past, in this case, it was Vern reaching out to his old contact. But as you guys are networking, reach out to your old contacts. A lot of people say to me, I cannot tell you how many people say to me, "Oh, well, it's been too long. I haven't talked to this person," and they fill in the blank. Some people say I haven't talked to them in 3 years. Some people say I haven't talked to them in 20 years. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It falls into the blast from the past category. As long as you left that relationship on good terms, they will be thrilled to hear from you. It happened to me yesterday. I'm doing a search right now, and I reached back out to a colleague, and I had literally have not seen this guy in like 10, 11 years. And we were just like, oh, how's it going? And we actually had this conversation. We talked about the fact that it's been so long, and yet it was as if it was just a day, right? Do not worry how many years have gone by. If anything, it's great, right, to reconnect for whatever the reason is. And you never know what can come out of it. In fact, that's actually why Vern is here, right? He and I had not talked for years. We were in that very same group that Nancy, the three of us were in. And he got to me because somebody on this group was doing some pro bono coaching with him and said, hey, Vern, I think you should join this group. And so we reconnected, and here we are. So definitely resurrect your old relationships for sure. So thank you, Jamie. That's great. All right. So actually that was a chock full of a lot of information that, kind of reinforces all the stuff that we talk about here. Does anybody have another question, a specific question that we can answer? And by the way, so today we've got Vern with us, who, as some of you may know, is a former HR exec, and he's also a career coach, and he's a master networker. And we have Tenny Good, who is substituting for Corliss Jackson. In fact, will probably be with us for hopefully many more weeks. And Tenny actually not only does federal government resumes, but she also comes from an HR background. So we're going to tap her as well. So who's got a question that we can respond to?
Well, I just want first time with the group, and takeaway that I had was using LinkedIn to connect with folks from that I worked with previously and so forth. So that was a good takeaway, and I did that. I actually exhausted the number of connects I can get in 1 week. So I went to the LinkedIn jail. They wouldn't let me connect anymore. And just like that, I mean, as of today is Friday, as of Wednesday, folks just started reaching back out to me. How you doing? What's going on? What's your situation? And lo and behold, hey, okay, I see what's going on with you. Let me reach out. I know somebody here. I know somebody there. Let me get some, send out a text to someone here that can probably, may have some insight on something going on. So just like that, it just started working, like a waterfall, just cascading. So something I haven't even thought in the last 8 months, and in a week, you see the pipeline is just moving right now. So I appreciate the tips on that. That's great.
And
That's
Pierre,
awesome.
And Pierre, to kind of, springboard off of that, one of the things we always talk about is finding an internal champion when you have a specific opportunity. So in addition to doing what you're doing, which is just, connecting with folks, which is great, as you find opportunities, put the name of that organization in the search bar. And what'll happen is the people, the organization's LinkedIn page will come up. You'll see the number of number of employees that organization has. Okay, click on it, and then you'll see that the people who are there. So if there's anybody there, the CEO, hiring manager, HR person, those three people, particularly the hiring manager, if any one of those people is a second level connection to you, you click on them, and then you find your mutual connections. That is a way to actually leverage your connections. So it's not just proactively people saying, oh, I'm happy to help you, Pierre. It's also you going after them and saying, hey, Mary, my first level connection, I noticed you're connected to John, who's the hiring manager for this role. Would you consider forwarding my application for extra consideration? So apply first, but then go back to your first level connection and then ask for them to at the very least to get you extra consideration. Now, if the person, if the Mary, right, who knows you, if she really knows your work, you can actually ask for a recommendation. It's a little different. Okay, you can say, would you recommend me? And even say something, say something positive. But at the very least, you want extra consideration, because otherwise you're just a resume in the pile. You want to be airlifted out of the pile.
Excellent, because I was going to ask what the next steps were after making all those connections, but okay, that helps right there.
Yeah. You're welcome. Tenny, did you have anything to add about that? You're on mute. Tenny, you're on mute.
Me and that darn mute button. But those who don't know me yet know that mute on me is a good thing sometimes. So it's a good but I would say, you know, I really am encouraged when I hear these stories, because at the end of the day, when you're a job seeker, it's very easy to start calling it a process, a journey. Some people call it the worst 4-letter word, a game. But at the end of the day, it's people helping people. So humanizing your job search into asking those folks to assist you, champion for you, help guide you. That's what makes it a nice journey at the end of it, as she definitely told us this morning in landing her job, right? Then you can be reflective on it. The good thing about this is as you go through your journey, you're building up opportunities to help other people. So I just think that anytime you can reach out in a genuine, authentic self to say, this is where I'm going, can you help me? What can I do for you? Anytime I've ever networked with folks, I always try to end that conversation with, thank you so much. My gratitude is to you, but what can I do for you? They may say nothing at all. It was a pleasure to connect with you. It was great to make that referral for you. But you've genuinely and authentically said, I'm here to reciprocate this down the road.
Right.
And I think that's important too, because that's how we build relationships. And that's how we make this unfortunate temporary situation of unemployment bearable, is when we know that we're going through it as a human being, and we know that other human beings can lift us up.
And you know what, along those lines, Tenny, thank you so much for that. Along those lines, in addition to asking that question in the conversation, the how can I help you back, try to be a connector in your life. Be a connector. Now, there's some of us who are just sort of natural born connectors. I'm that way, Vern's that way, Tenny, I'm sure you're that way, Sonia, that you're that way. A lot of us, you know, Jamie, I know you are for sure. We just sort of are that way, but it's not natural for everyone. But to take a tip from our playbook, okay? So we connectors are always thinking about ways to connect other people with other people and with resources, okay? So for example, the other day, I got we all get newsletters from random, consultants or whatever. And I got this newsletter and it was on copywriting. It was sort of a branding kind of a thing. And that's something I'm into. Well, I happen to know a freelance writer. Okay, this is what he does, freelance writing. And I know that he just started a newsletter. So I forwarded him that newsletter because there was some really interesting content that I thought he could sort of repurpose and what have you. And he was so grateful. And that was just sort of a random thing, okay? So we connectors, we're always thinking about things like that. So do that on a regular basis. If you read anything, if you talk to anybody and you're like, oh my gosh, you really should be proactively, you should just meet so-and-so, not for any other reason than you think that there's going to be synergy there. Just make that a regular habit in your life to always be thinking about how the things that people you're encountering and the things that you're reading and the resources that you're gathering could be valuable to somebody else. Just take that 2 seconds and do the outreach. Just forward the email, shoot the text, what have you, and let people know you're thinking about them, right? It's just a goodwill gesture. Yeah.
Let me add one other tip to giving back. In the work we do at Contacts Count, again, we talk about networking as teaching and giving. Teaching others what you're looking for, communicating your expertise, but also be thinking about, again, as Tenny said, giving back to them. And what we find in some cases, that people struggle, what am I going to give them? And they think they have to do it in the moment, while they're having that conversation. And don't put that pressure on yourself. Learn as much as you can about this person. And then a week later or 2 weeks later, whenever it might happen, you might see an article that they might be interested in. Or you might, as Shira said, meet somebody who you think would be a good person for them to connect to. So as long as and again, the more you learn about them over time, the greater the likelihood you'll find ways to give back to them.
Jen.
Hi, everybody. I'm a job service specialist for the state of Maryland. And really looking to get out, and things going to be we're the front face for unemployment right now. And I'm not unemployment and reemployment. It's just a goofy system, which a lot of you probably know, and it's going to get goofier and more people are going to be kicked off. So the writing's clear on the wall. I got to get myself out of this stress. And so I'm looking at some new avenues. I definitely considered doing some of what I've done, but I'm trying to, feel out where God's leading me. And one of the things that really ignited me in my past was being a religion teacher. Unfortunately, it was before I got my master's in teaching, and I didn't know a lot about classroom management and that you shouldn't tell the kids that you're first year teacher. So the 8th graders about chewed me up and spit me out. And by the end of and the new principal, who was moved up from being a new vice principal because our principal left halfway through the year, her way of dealing with me with a class that was not manageable was to bring me in the office and chew me out and yell at me. So, I do remember moments that were so great teaching, especially the 6th grade, which was so easy, and the 7th grade. But like I said, the 8th grade was pretty tough. And bottom line, I'm thinking about, just writing some schools, saying, here's my resume. I don't know if you're going to have a religion or history teacher open. This would be private and Catholic schools I'd write, because I don't want to be a teacher in a public school with all the standards and not being able to talk about my faith or related and have to teach some liberal stuff. So I'm trying to think of the best approach to this. Definitely LinkedIn. Definitely I have some letters of recommendation that are old, but, asking some of those people. But one of the things that is a fear in me is the classroom management and having the support from above me that I didn't have. And so there's a part of me that wants to ask and feel out what kind of support I would have as a teacher, and what questions I can maybe ask the people over me. But I guess I'd have to get an interview first, and research them as to how they support their teachers and deal with discipline and stuff like that. So, I just don't want to jump in a frying pan right off. I want to have the support if that's where God's calling me.
I think Jen, you're on the right track in terms of just reaching out to principals directly. Look, there's a teacher shortage. There just is. A lot of teachers are leaving the field. So, and especially now because of what's happened last year. So I think your timing is good for this. And I think it's very wise to ask those principals about classroom management and mentoring and what support they have, and nothing wrong with any of that. I think you're just on target. Vern or Tenny, do you have any other thoughts? Or Sonia?
I have a question. Are you only interested in grade school or high school? Would you be interested in college level teaching?
Oh, definitely. I'd be open to
Okay.
that. I don't know if I have the theology background for it.
Well, what I was thinking, you have to do your research, and I could say I know I have several colleagues right now who do this. They do adjunct teaching, and I got one colleague teaching at Northern Virginia Community College. I got a teaching over at University of Maryland, College Park. But they're doing adjunct teaching, and you can get your, I'll say, feet wet at that level, and you won't have the issue you have with the 8th graders. And but that'll get you, your foot in the door, and then you can, like I said, you have to do your research. But if you're highly specialized in anything, because based on, in my conversations, I like what Shira says, a lot of people looking for teachers right now. And that will get your feet in the door.
Thanks, Sonia. If I was writing the principal, Shara, would I be saying, like I'm writing to see if there's an opening, sending them my resume, but I wouldn't ask right away, what's your mentoring support or system that you have for your teacher?
I wouldn't ask it then. No, you first want to get the meeting.
Yeah.
Want to get the interview, see if they even have an opening.
Yeah.
When you're in the interview, it's not your first question, right?
Right.
Obviously, and you have a conversation, and then, but by the way, when they come to, the classroom management piece of it, because they're going to be asking you too, right? Like how you manage the classroom, and then you can tell them your philosophy, but then flip it back to them and say, yeah, also, I'm curious, what kind of mentoring and support you have.
And Jennifer, the other thing, and I had to step away for a minute, so I missed some of what you're saying, but the other way for you to learn about what you need to learn and want to learn is, again, using your network. Are there teachers in your network? Are there principals in your network? Or is someone in your network, do they know a principal or a teacher that they could introduce you to, and just talk to them about exactly what you talked about here and get their advice, information, ask them questions, and that's outside the interview. But that work may help prepare you for, when you do get an interview with a principal.
Yeah, the trick, thank you, Vern. The thing is that's going to be tricky is that job ended with someone coming on in about the last month and a half and taking over the 8th grade class for me. And then my contract wasn't renewed for the future year, which I wasn't going to go back there anyways. But it's just, if I get questioned about that, I'll have to, deal with that.
Well, again, in networking, you don't even have to bring that story up. Say, look, I think I'm going back. I'd like to, I've had this passion about teaching, and I think I'm considering going back into teaching, and tell me what made you successful. If you're talking to a teacher, what made you successful? What was the environment like? What was your principal like? Ask a bunch of questions about how their experiences are. What would their recommendations be in terms of, here are the things you need to be successful. You heard Jamie earlier talk about resilience. And certainly if you're in the job search, that's something you just need to know and understand and be able to handle. So it's just a way to gather lots of information about, what the path that you want to follow.
Thanks, Vern.
Jennifer, and I would say, even if you have people in your network, definitely use that. But if you don't, you really have so you're investigating, you're researching how to get back into it. So you would do cold contacts to some of the schools that you think might be a good fit for you, and just request to do an informational interview and be very honest and raw that I haven't done this in several years, but I'd like to come back into this occupation. Can I get some time on one of your calendars just to do some informational interview, just to ask some questions, just to get some feedback and grow? That's a great way to grow your network. And it's amazing that sometimes when you just come to them for the information, then they'll come back to you and say, you know what, Jennifer, you are a good fit for this school. Right. And we happen to have an opening coming up in the fall, or we're going to have a maternity leave situation maybe in the spring. Right. But now you've at least grown your network by just being vulnerable and just being true and just wanting some information. So maybe an informational interview might be the way to go.
And this is a really good time as well, because there are, literally as we speak, there are teachers who are deciding not to come back in the fall.
Yes.
They just finished their year and they're literally saying to themselves, I don't want to re-up, and they're about to tell their principals. In fact, I'm coaching somebody right now who's literally in that situation, right? And she's coaching with me because she wants to leave teaching. And a lot of teachers, especially a lot of young teachers, have gotten, unfortunately, disillusioned. They got into it for one reason, and then they just didn't want to your point, didn't want to deal with the administration, bureaucracy, what have you, and they're leaving. So this is a great time to be reaching out.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Other questions?
Hi, I'm Rena, and I'm new here. I haven't been on before. I was referred by Sonia. I have not a question, but just a situation where I got a couple of graduate education and MBA and energy, and I recently got my PMP. So the job market looks exciting. In fact, I came close to getting an offer from Microsoft. I was literally told by the hiring manager that I had the job. My references were checked, and then I guess during my interviews, I think I gave them too much insight about the lack of structure and how to put the whole process into place, because it was kind of like a relatively new opportunity, and then they went cold. So my thing is, from what I'm gathering today, is I need to use LinkedIn better. because I pay the premium, but I don't really network and connect like that. And it seems to me the whole process of using Indeed is not getting me anywhere. So I've been stressing over how did I lose that job that was literally mine? What did I do wrong there? And the recruiter said we've asked them 10 times what went wrong and they can't tell us anything. I just fell on deaf ears. So I don't know what happened there. And sometimes it puts a little dent in your confidence. I mean, it really hurt. We're talking Microsoft, right? PMP project manager job. So I'm wondering how I can utilize the premium LinkedIn network better. I'm on a few project manager groups. I have done some project management work, but I've not extensively. And every time you go out there to look for an opportunity, it looks like the people with more, experience keep getting the offers. So I need to figure out how to put myself out there better and connect and step up, like you guys are saying, and say, I need help. Can you direct me? Do you have any suggestions for me? And also using my network, because I did my MBA at Rutgers, I went to USC, I went to University of Colorado, but I don't think I'm utilizing those networks effectively. So I need help in a lot of ways. Sometimes I wonder if I have too much education. Is that something I had a recruiter tell me I'm scaring the hiring managers? And I just got my PMP. So yeah, I mean, I really helped the Microsoft group see how I could put structure around the change process with scope management. I opened their eyes into the fact that they need to start to capture some lessons learned and stuff like that. And next thing I know, I didn't get my offer come through. I don't know.
There's a lot packed in there, Rena.
There's a lot there.
We got about 5 different topics all wrapped
Okay.
in one speech. So we won't pack all of that. So first of all, look, and Sonia can attest to this, right? Because she's been in HR, as can Tenny and Vern and myself as a recruiter. Look, there are a million reasons why people don't get jobs, okay? And I know this sounds very glib to say this. It's not personal.
That's right.
It is not personal. Just isn't. They are making a business decision. Think of it this way. If you needed to go hire a plumber because you had a leaky faucet, right? And you checked around and you went to your neighbors and said, who's got the best plumber? And you get 3 referrals, okay? You pick the one who you want based on whatever it is, cost, capability, whatever. Like you make your pick. So you pick this particular person. The other 2 people do not get picked. Was that a personal decision? Did you personally reject the other? No, you made a decision based upon your particular, in this case, home needs, okay? They are making decisions based on their business needs. So whatever the situation was, you might, sure, it's possible that something that you said in the interview, did that, but whatever you said, it wasn't personal. It was something that you said that maybe they just thought, listen, in our particular case, we don't think that's necessarily going to be the right fit, whatever it is, mindset, culture, skill set, whatever it is. Okay. And you never know, maybe that decision that they, went to somebody else was the right thing for you, because maybe that wasn't going to be the right opportunity.
That's how I look at it.
Yeah. Maybe that was just God's timing saying, no, I'm closing the door here because this opportunity wasn't for you.
Okay.
So you got to think of it, first of all, emotionally in those terms.
Right.
Either right or it's not. And you're not supposed to get every offer because not every job is right for you. Okay. Just keep that in mind. On the other side of things, when it comes to your networking, there's what I'd call proactive networking and reactive networking. They're both important, but they're different. The reactive networking would be when you see an opportunity on, let's say, Indeed, okay, which understand when somebody posts a job on Indeed or any job board, you are now competing with the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody. And a lot of people, frankly, aren't qualified for the role, which means that they're submitting their resume and clogging up the system. Okay. So you've got a lot of competition with that. The reactive networking on that side is you making sure that you find an internal champion. Just like I was saying to Pierre earlier, you put the name of the organization, LinkedIn, in the search bar, you find out who the hiring manager is, or the CEO, or the HR person, the recruiter, And after you apply, you get somebody to champion you so that you are pulled out of that big, huge pile, right? It's there's usually about a 10% chance of anybody landing a job through Indeed or any of those job boards, Rena. Please know that, because the competition is so stiff. You can increase your chances by getting yourself airlifted out, but even then, tons and tons and tons of people. The proactive networking is what we call it accessing the hidden job market. Okay? That's where you don't even know that there's a job in existence, where you are going to your colleagues who work at companies or who know people who work at companies that you're interested in, and asking for an informational interview, asking to be connected to somebody in a department, so in their project management department or whatever, just so that you can get yourself in front of them. Okay, so because you never know. The hidden job market is such that there are a lot of jobs out there that are just a twinkle in somebody's eye. They haven't posted it, they're not even planning on posting it. They're just thinking about, we have a need, we might have a need. They might meet you and realize they have a need. They might have even thought about having a job. But once they've met you and they've seen your work, or somebody's referred you to them, somebody who knows you, likes you, and trusts you, refers you to them and says, oh my gosh, Rena, she is just the cat's meow. You've got to meet this woman, right? And then they meet you and all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, wow, we could really use your skill set. That's the hidden job market. That's the 80% of times that people get jobs, right? Or when somebody taps you for something. But it's really a matter of you getting out there and making sure that the people who need to know you. And one of the things that I like to recommend is to go after, to network with what I call your twins, your professional twins. So your professional twin is somebody who does what you do or does what you want to do. Meaning those people either know of opportunities internally or are being tapped for similar opportunities externally. So some recruiter like me is calling your colleague right now and saying, hey, colleague, who do you know that would be a good fit for this job? And you're hoping they're going to say, oh, Rena. Not right for me, but it's right for Rena. That means, Rena, you need to be on the radar of your professional twins so that they know to refer you. That's one of the best kinds of networking that you can do. They're not your competitors, they are your collaborators.
That's excellent. Excellent. Thank you.
And Rena, the other source of networking for you is, you said maybe you have too much education. I don't think you can ever have too much education. So you have alumni networks at all of those different universities. And obviously, maybe even people that you knew when you were going through the program. I'd reach out to them. And certainly if there were people in the project management certification process, are they finding jobs? Where do they see the jobs? Where are opportunities that they're finding? So
yeah, go back to PMI, network with them.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. I'm thinking and writing.
Good.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, who else has a question?
Hi, I have a quick question about job fairs.
Yeah.
Any tips on virtual job fairs?
I'm not an expert in that. Tenny, have you experienced that?
Sorry, repeat that question again. I'm sorry.
Tips on virtual job fairs.
Virtual job fairs. That's the new way of business, isn't it? I think you definitely have to make your personality a little bit larger than it would be in presence, because I think we're all Zoom doomed. We're all a little exhausted from the screen. And I think recruiters and hiring managers who do this, who are doing this kind of nonstop feel that as well. I don't think you can short the change of research definitely know corporate gray has always a lot of employers there. It's always a very large event. Terry, do you have a kind of a hit list of the employers you want to interview with today?
No, just Lidos because they have science career positions.
Okay. I would definitely, as we always talk about with job fairs, is just do your due diligence. Research Lidos. I always put in, just even in a Google search before I go to a job fair, put in Lidos news. What is the latest and the greatest in their world today? Not what was on their website 3 weeks ago, but what has hit their blog overnight? Where have they popped up? And then just try to weave in being that critical thinker, being that solver of their issues while you're having that time with them. Because it's virtual, all the other things kind of come into play, making sure that obviously your audio visual is good, your lighting's good, your sound is good. You unmute yourself when you need to, that's important too. But most importantly is enjoy the process. Enjoy those few moments that you'll have with that hiring manager or that recruiter. Is there anything specific, Terry?
No, this will be my first virtual job fair. So I just want to get all the information I can.
Okay. I will tell you, there's a lot of job seekers that this is their first time doing virtual. This is just a new season for a lot of people. It gets better with practice, absolutely. But I would definitely make sure that when you get on camera with that Lidos representative, you know them. Because the more that you know them, the more they're going to want to know you.
I have a comment also, Terry, since you're at the corporate gray, I've used them many times in the past and you get some very good talent. Should I assume you are a tech person?
I'm a science researcher.
Science researcher. Women in technology use, they have virtual job fairs often, and they you get some of the big boys, Leidos, Lockheed, Northrop Grumman. You get those type of organizations at their job fair, and they're online. Women in Technology, or WIT, they call themselves, and it's a great organization to connect with. So since you're just getting started, you might be able to find what you're looking for in that realm.
Thank you. I noticed that they will have a virtual job fair in July, mid-July for WIT.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Terry, I would say Google, tips for virtual job fairs, and really take into account your virtual appearance. I just got my bedroom in the background, so I blur it. I don't use automatic virtual backgrounds like the beach or the Golden Gate Bridge, because when you turn your head, you're losing the visual. So as professional as you can come across in appearance, that's really important too, as well as those other areas.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if you guys are looking for, excuse me, for tips in, excuse me, the virtual background and all of that, I'm going to put in here a link for, hold on one sec, for a video that I co-presented with Kiki L'Italien, who Vern mentioned earlier, and another colleague. And if you go to this YouTube, we called it Reframing Your Image. It was an hour long, and it just was all about the Zoom backgrounds for different purposes in your life. And I happen to do the one on interviewing, so feel free to take advantage of that. All right, other questions?
I have a question with regards to how do you navigate different phases that you could be in. Let's say I've applied to several companies. I'm working for a recruiter. I might be in the phase where I may be getting a first interview with one or a second interview with another. And I'm really keen, or I'm excited about all the opportunities, but one in particular, and maybe that one's not moving fast enough to, and maybe there's another company that says, you know, are you interviewing with anyone else right now? What is your outlook as far as like when you might be available? So I want to keep, I'm being honest with them, let them know, yeah, I'm interviewing with someone else, but I don't want to say I'm more excited about another opportunity. So how do you navigate when you have several players going on at the same time?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's very much an it depends situation, right? So definitely be transparent. When you have a first choice opportunity, they're the ones who need to know in particular that you're pending elsewhere, okay? Because you want them to know that they are your first choice. Like you literally would say that. Jamie, I know, did that with this particular, the organization that she landed with, like partway through her journey, because she had something else that she thought, another offer she thought she was going to get. So she went back to her first choice, the one she got, and said, hey, you know, I think I'm about to get an offer, what have you, what's the status of the process? And they're like, oh, wait, don't go anywhere, way back. You know, like they wanted to know. It's very important to let your first choice know about other things. Now, in terms of your second choice, yeah, let them know as well. But at the end of the day, it's really going to be, the timing issue is more around when an offer comes through. That's the issue, okay? So if you expect an offer coming through from, let's say, your second choice, let your first choice know that this is coming up, okay? Give them first right of refusal. It's very, very important that they know that. Now, of course, I don't know your specific situation, right? Because it's hard to give generic advice on this kind of thing, because it's like, I get these calls all the time. Like, well, I've got this one, but what about that one? And the timing. In fact, yesterday, somebody from this, our group, she was a longtime person, and she just got an offer. Actually, this is what happens. So she calls me yesterday and she says, you know, I got this offer and it's like $5,000 less than what I wanted. But there's this other company that she wants to interview with. She's going to have a second level today. And what does she do? And what does she tell because the company that offered her the job actually is her second choice. And I said, look, I said, you're going to need to go to your first choice and tell them exactly what's going on and ask them the timing of things. See if they're able to expedite the process for you. And if they are, then you go back to the second choice and say, look, I've got something else pending. I thank you for this offer. You know, can we extend my decision by a couple of days, something like that. So it really, really depends. It's a very nuanced situation. All I can tell you is that be transparent, and particularly with your first choice, because if they're interested in you, they're going to want to know how quickly they need to move the process up in order to get you. So hope that helps.
Yes, that helps. Thanks.
Sure. All right, other questions? Or Tenny and Vern, did you have any follow-up comments on that?
I guess generically, if, you know, when you're talking to one company, if they ask you, you know, what's your status and so forth and so on. And I mean, you can say in general, I'm exploring a number of opportunities. I'm interviewing with several companies. In other words, that at least communicates to them that other people are looking at you based on, you know, your talent, your skills, your resume, whatever's happened up to that point, which tells them, hey, other people are looking at you and they're seeing good things because they want to they're at least interviewing you, right? So you certainly can communicate that at any time, you know, wherever you are in the job search.
What it is, basically, what happened is, prior to my scenario with building my connections on LinkedIn, I got in touch with a couple of recruiters, and it kind of went dormant for a little while, and then it picked up a little bit steam, where the recruiter that I was working with recently has an opportunity that he's really pitching for me. And then I make the connections on LinkedIn and come to find out that there's an opportunity through one of my connections that would put me together with colleagues from the past that I had a great relationship with. And so I put the application in, and I connected with actually the president of the company. It's like, oh, great, you know, send it through. and I'm getting some recommendations from other connections to the president. So if that was to work out, it would be like my first choice opportunity. But in the meantime, this recruiter is already digging his heels in and putting in some, I guess going to the second stage to get me to an interview. So I'm like, oh boy, look at the timing of this now. All of a sudden, things are moving, and here's my first choice, but it's just budding compared to this one is moving along already. So I'm looking at that.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, and we've mentioned this a lot, Pierre, in other words, the recruiter's pushing you to get this interview. That interview could come next week, it could come next month.
Exactly.
While the recruiter sounds very anxious,
Right.
and I'm pushing you, when that interview happens, it like I said, it could be a month. So the thing that's just budding may move faster, and actually, you may get an interview with that one before you get the interview with the recruiter.
Never know.
Yeah, you just never know. That's why Shira said it depends on the timing, and you don't have any control over that, actually.
No.
So
The biggest thing is if you know you're getting an offer, or you get an offer, that's really where all this stuff kicks into gear in terms of who you're pending with and all that stuff.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was teaching a workshop one time, and the gentleman in the front row, he said, I've got the worst scenario in the world. I've got 4 offers that I've got to make a decision on by the end of the week. Of course, he couldn't see the faces of all the job seekers behind him who didn't quite understand why 4 offers were so stressful. Yeah, but it really is.
Yeah.
But I think going back to your point, if an employer is honestly asking you, what's your situation? Are you looking? I always think that's a good sign, because that means obviously they see something good in you. But I think this is also a good time to kind of reinforce your value, your priority as a job seeker. I am looking for opportunities, and I'm really valuing location, or I'm looking for other opportunities. I'm talking to other companies, and fair market value is really a top priority for me in an opportunity. So it gives you an opportunity to tell them once again why you're looking for an opportunity and what's important to you. And that way, sometimes the number 2 in your mind, if they up their game, they could quickly bypass your number 1 and be your top priority if they listen to you and say, you know what, this candidate is somebody we want. We hear him. We know this is what he's interested in. Let us come back to him and maybe make that offer a little bit richer into what he's looking for.
Yep.
Good advice.
Absolutely. Good. All right. Other questions?
I just had a quick one based on the last comment. Could you go a little bit more into the fair market value?
Absolutely. Fair market value, from my point of view as an HR and as a job coach, is just honest goodness. What is the going rate for somebody with your education and your years of experience? We all know it's very dangerous to say, what do you want to make? Because we would all add zeros to it. So in the realm of reality, it's got to be, what is fair market value for that person? I'm working with someone right now, which I think this can be somewhat of a common situation. He is working, but he has recently found out that some of the people who have been hired after him are making more money than him. And he's a little perturbed at that. And he wants to take action. And my advice to him is, 1, all's fair in love and war and negotiation. And sometimes that happens when you hire somebody. It's just it's based upon what they negotiated, what were they willing to give and take. And that's kind of a whole different conversation. But what I'm advising him to do is find out what your market value is. Do your research. Go out there and look at some of the common websites, salary.com, ONET online. Find out what is fair market value for you. Obviously, companies will come back with sweeter deals. Hopefully, they won't come back under that number of fair market value. If they are, I would definitely keep looking, unless money is not a priority for you. For other people, it may be the responsibility, it may be the career progression, maybe the location. But the fair market value is just what is fair salary out there for somebody with your skills, your years of experience, and your education in that location. Does that help?
Yes, thanks.
And remember too, that the flip side of it is that employers are always trying to watch their bottom line. And so when they put a compensation structure on a role, they're looking internally at equity within the organization. They're always trying to basically get away with what they can. I mean, it's just so they're just trying to make a good business decision, right? So when somebody leaves the role, they typically do not pay what the person left at. They try to go back a little bit, right, to what maybe the person started at. And so part of it is what you're worth, and part of it is what is the role worth. Now, wages have been flat and falling in this country for the last 30 years. This is just the reality, okay? And it takes a really good recruiter to keep bumping those numbers up. But at the end of the day, you know, sometimes the job is what the job is, the role is what the role is. They've comped it the way they've comped it, having nothing to do with you. It's just kind of what is. Your job is to push for as high as you possibly can in that process. And so that comes down to salary negotiations, right? And I haven't talked about this in a minute, but my philosophy is that you always start high. You can always negotiate low, right? So when somebody, some organizations are still asking candidates, what are you looking for? Now, many of them understand with pay equity laws that they can't ask you what your current salary is. So they often won't do that anymore, but often they will still say, what do you want? And your job is not to say two numbers. Don't give them two numbers. You give them two numbers, they're going to take the low end. Okay. You give them one number, the high end, and say that you're looking for a total cash compensation package in this area. Then you can always negotiate down if you absolutely need to, but you've got to start high, because you got to get that number circulating in the employer's mind that you're looking for something on the higher end. And even if the number that you've proffered is higher than what they can actually offer, they'll tell you. They'll say, hey, what you just mentioned is a little bit above our range, right? Do you have any flexibility? In which case you can say, well, look, I'm open to looking at benefits and bonus structure and this and that. But yeah, that's kind of the way that, that you want to do it. By the way, so Jamie's left. So yeah, always go for the higher end of the range. And then again, you can always walk yourself down. All right, other questions? Actually, we're about actually at time. So are there any other questions before we wrap up? Okay, if not, some of you may know that at the end of this call, I actually lead a prayer call. So if any of you would like to stay on after we're concluded, which is actually now, you're certainly welcome to. For those of you who don't want to stay on, we'll certainly look forward to seeing you next week. And as you see, our numbers keep dwindling because people are getting jobs, which is terrific. So feel free to keep referring your friends, so we have folks here that we can help. All right, so with that, we'll conclude the official portion. And again, stay on if you'd like for the